This episode is brought to you by Kyolic Aged Garlic Extract. With over 870 peer-reviewed published scientific articles, Kyolic is one of the most studied garlic supplements on the market. Don't like the taste or smell of garlic? Well, that's no problem. Their proprietary aging process removes the unpleasant odors and harsh side effects. They have over 12 formulas developed specifically to support cardiovascular, immune, cognitive health, and overall well-being, something to fit nearly everyone's needs. Kyolic. Garlic is good. Aged garlic extract is better.
The inflammatory response is supposed to correct what's going on and then turn it off and restore you back to kind of your homeostasis or your health. The problem is that when people get eat the wrong foods, don't get enough exercise or exercise too much, it starts to trigger a process where your body stays turned on. It never turns off. The inflammation process doesn't turn off.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Holistic Navigator podcast, where we believe in the body's capacity for self-healing if it's given the proper nutrients and care it deserves. Thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Brian Strickland. I'm the producer of the show, and here with me in the studio, as always, is your host, Ed Jones. And today we're speaking with Jim LaValle once again. Jim is an internationally recognized clinical pharmacist, author, board-certified clinical nutritionist, and expert and educator in integrative and precision health. He's best known for his expertise in personalized integrative therapies, uncovering the underlying metabolic issues that keep people from feeling healthy and vital. Today, we talk a lot about those metabolic aging and inflammation problems and how to combat it with diet and supplements, and one supplement in particular that has a multifaceted approach to help with these issues. We have a lot of ground to cover in this episode, so I'm going to go ahead and hop off here and pass it over to our host, Mr. Ed Jones.
And welcome to the Holistic Navigator again. And today's podcast is from a person I actually call a friend. We've had him on the Holistic Navigator in February of 2020. And it was on blood analysis, actually, and is one of the topics that is near and dear to my heart. And very few people understand the value of what we can garner from getting the right blood testing, but also the right interpretation of it. And I will say that Dr. James LaValle is written one of the most informative and fairly easy to read books on how to request and interpret your blood chemistry for optimal health. And I'm going to plug that episode just a minute because I now have 43 years experience watching people's health from every venue. And I see so constantly that the blood tests that are being given at the regular physicals is really nonsense. It's there to pick up overt, really acute conditions, which there's a value to that now. But if you think that that's the only blood test you need to age gracefully, please listen to the February episode with Dr. James LaValle on the blood testing and his book that is fabulous. So before I even say anything else about that, I want to talk a little bit about this gentleman. He is internationally recognized clinical pharmacist, author, board-certified clinical nutritionist, expert and educator in integrative and precision health. I love that word, precision health. Written 20 to 30 books. He's been nominated for so many awards, works with a whole plethora of professional companies from, Chicago Blackhawks to Philadelphia Eagles, New England Patriots. He's a founder of Metabolic Code Enterprises, and just on and on and on. I mean, welcome, Mr. Hero, Dr. LaValle. I appreciate you taking your valuable time to spend it with Ed Jones here at the Holistic Navigator.
Oh, I'm more than happy to. This is great. I mean, the first time we got to have our chat, I was so thrilled to hear about all the, I just think, innovative and community outreach work that you're doing just to help people feel better and really reach for what they deserve, which is people deserve to feel the best they can through every stage of their life. So vitality at every stage of life, that's what I've talked about for the last 38 years or 40 years now. And I think it's great that I got a brother in arms
That's right. That's right. And we both have lived the life, and we've observed so many people. And I love the way you said that. I've never truly mentally put those words together, that people deserve to feel their best. And they do. We are awarded a physical body that has a innate healing capacity that is beyond any drug, any surgery, any procedure, any computer. And we already have this innate pharmacy within us. But the problem is the conventional medical training does not embrace nor respect that kind of philosophy. So the public who is out there looking and listening will learn on their own and then find the team approach that will help them get to the goal that they want. What is the goal? The goal is to age gracefully. You know, I read the other day, and it reminded me, I've known this forever, one of the greatest risk factors of all of our lives is getting older. Aging is the thing that's going to cause the worst damage, but we can slow the effects of that down significantly. And anyone who's listened to many of my podcasts or talks to me in person knows that when I recommend blood work, one of the two most important tests to me is fasting insulin and then C-reactive protein. And C-reactive protein high sensitivity looks at a type of inflammation. And today I want Dr. LaValle wants to speak about something called metabolic inflammation. And it is a key determinant of your future. And when we can balance this chronic inflammation, magic and miracles can happen on preserving our health and slowing aging. So, Dr. LaValle, I got to shut myself up here because you're the man with tremendous knowledge. So let's talk about metabolic inflammation, what it is and what we can do about this.
Yeah, so, you know, when I first wrote the book, Cracking the Metabolic Code, that was back in 2002 with the second edition coming out now, because it was still pretty relevant today when you read it, because it goes over things like insulin and glucose and gut health and inflammation and what goes on with stress and sleep disorders and detoxification. But, you know, I wrote it and there wasn't as much of everybody kind of looked at me and said, what are you talking about? The theme was, you know what, our body acts as a whole, meaning that we can tear things apart into little subsections like liver or gut or pancreas. But in the end, all of our metabolism, where we are right now, you know, all the metabolic reactions going in your body is doing one of two things. It's either pushing you towards future health or pushing you towards future illness. There's not a lot of gray, right? I mean, you got, and so it's important for people to understand this, the new term that's out now, which I think is great that it finally has come out, is meta-flammation. Metabolic inflammation. And it's interesting because everything you just said kind of fits into into this kind of pattern or model. And metaflammation, and this, I didn't make this term up. This is in the medical research. I mean, there's all kinds of papers written on it. So your body's supposed to have an inflammatory response. And the inflammatory response is supposed to correct what's going on and then turn it off and restore you back to kind of your homeostasis or your health. The problem is that when people eat the wrong foods, don't get enough exercise or exercise too much, you could get it either way. Don't get enough sleep, get infections, get exposed to environmental pollutants, get under tremendous amount of work stress. It starts to trigger a process where your body stays turned on. It never turns off. The inflammation process doesn't turn off. And there's some key things that start to shift when that happens. So one of the things that happens is that, you start to make a bunch of bad actor lipids. So a lot of times people go, well, my doctor said my cholesterol is good. Well, it's more than just your cholesterol. It's, are you oxidizing your cholesterol? Are you making bad lipoproteins, which are components to cholesterol, which are the things that actually are damaging your arteries and damaging your tissues and creating accelerated aging. So the first thing that goes wrong is you start to see lipid get abnormal. And, and we hear a lot of people go, oh, well, those people in other countries have normal lipids, high lipids, and they have good health. Well, good. We're not living there.
Yeah.
we're here. And we're not eating the way they're eating probably if they're in a European country like Switzerland, where they're eating more whole foods and they're not eating as much processed crap. So that's one. The next thing that happens is that your iron stores start to get altered. And it's interesting. And I know, Ed, you guys have seen so many lab tests. You're seeing more and more people where they have normal iron, but their ferritin pool is low. And ferritin is a stored form of iron. It's really important for people because it helps your thyroid to work better. It stimulates your body to make what's called erythropoietin, which helps you to make new red blood cells. And so what happens when you get metabolically inflamed is you can't store your iron in your bone marrow in the terms of ferritin. You don't have enough ferritin to help your thyroid hormone penetrate your cell membrane. And why that's important, of course, is because thyroid dictates how you're going to burn lipids. It's going to dictate how efficient your metabolism is, whether you have energy or not, right? And so this process starts to occur where we start to lose bone, our insulin signaling. I know you and I are on the same page about how important it is to understand insulin and glucose. But all of these things start going downstream together. And the net result of it is it damages your cell's ability, because in that process, all these inflammatory compounds, they don't get turned off. So your immune system stays stuck, like revving your engine at 8,000 RPMs all the time. And we've heard about this, right? People with diabetes have the equivalent of a low-grade infection in their body 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The way their body is presenting its immune response, it's accelerated, it's jacked up. And so the net of that is, over time, it leads to another term that's hot out there in the literature now called inflammaging. Inflammatory aging, and you said C-reactive protein. One of the big compounds that accelerates the aging process, because it damages our brain, it damages our arteries, and damages our kidneys, right? And so it's really important for people to understand that your way your body is positioned today, the kind of diet you choose to eat, the type of rest you choose to get, the kind of supplementation you do to optimize your blood chemistry and keep those metabolic markers in check. All of those things add up to being able to recapture that vitality you deserve. But if you're not aware or you're not looking at it with a really good complete lab test, you don't understand that, your doctor says, hey, your lipids are up a little, and gee, your blood sugar's 98, and oh, wow, your kidney function, well, you know what, you're not quite in renal failure yet, so we're not going to worry about that yet. When all those kind of chess pieces get put on the board, all of a sudden you are accelerating yourself into the aging process. And that's why it's important to understand metaflammation. Your body's either managing its inflammation and maintaining health, or you're moving towards increasing your risk of all kinds of illnesses. And I think look, if the pandemic did anything for people, they finally realized that things like vitamin D and zinc and quercetin and vitamin C and vitamin A, in addition to other nutrients, but that they're really important. That, oh my gosh, it really does matter if you have adequate stores of these things. And so I think it's an interesting time where I think there's this final appreciation going on about the value of really taking care of yourself and what it really means.
Wow, that was a phenomenal explanation that I think will be well understood. And I loved your analogy of like revving the engine up. And I also think of it like having your one foot on the brake, the other on the accelerator pedal. I mean, you're just wearing yourself out for nothing but harm down the road. And the term you said, recapture your vitality. And I speak to, so many people all day long. I mean, we have about 300 to 400 who come into our store and or clinic setting. And, a lot of them want to talk to me. I don't have a lot of opportunities these days because of being so busy, but I love helping to educate people. And I always say when people are struggling terribly that there's hope. One, I think once you give up hope, you're pretty much done for. So we have to maintain and help other people to have hope when they're in despairing with their health and other areas too. But secondly, there is a window of opportunity that we all are given. Very rarely does someone get a blood test and they die the next week. I mean, normally you have time to fix this issue. And what we're talking about, what you're talking about, this metabolic aging and inflammation is a chronic disease. It's not an acute disease. That means that, it's a long term. And using common sense and then embracing the information that people like yourself have who not only personally do it, but have witnessed so many others who have gone through this maybe even 6 months worth of really putting together the pieces to tune this orchestra up that's within us and watch what happens. I challenge people very often these days. I said, you give me 60 days, you do what I recommend, and you take the supplements that I really feel are appropriate, you will never be the same person, because once that door cracks open, you see so much hope of recovering your vitality again. And I said actually this morning to someone on the radio, I was being interviewed from a station in Tampa, Florida, and I told the lady, I said, a lot of people live to be 78, but they actually kind of died when they were about 50-ish. They just didn't quit breathing till they were 78 because they were captured by the medical system. They didn't feel well. They were on 17 prescriptions. They really didn't have a life. And she was like, kind of laughed too. But it's you and I both see this, and it's sad because it's not reality. We don't have to live this way. 98% of all people. And so we're here. We know what metabolic aging is, inflammation. So first off, I want to definitely get into the supplement protocol because I'm huge into advice that really is specific for people that they can put the dots together pretty easily and go make it work. Sure. And then secondly, before that, just a little bit about diet. I do tend to lean toward a keto diet. I'm not into ketosis, but I do believe in high healthy fats, high healthy protein, and modest to low carbs Monday through Friday. This Saturday and Sunday, I switch it up. But what is your feelings on diet for this issue?
Well, what a great question. And we could talk about this a long time. I've got 3 dietitians with probably a total of 70 years of experience on my staff that are on the dietetic side of doing the research and really looking at what diets work. And I like our base diet is about 22% carb and about 40% fat and the remainder in protein. So we get the majority of carbs from plants. And depending on whether I've got an athlete or somebody who needs a little bit more carbohydrate, we'll have them learn how to use what kind of grains. We typically look at things like food allergens. For example, I had one lady that we just did this on, and she lost 20 pounds over a period of a month just getting off of the foods that her immune system was reacting to. Another blood test that can be invaluable. I actually did it, and over the last 90 days, and I'm pretty fit. I'm for a 60-year-old guy. I'm training and running and pretty fit, and I probably dropped a solid 2 inches off my waist, and I was like, did I have that there to begin with? And I guess I did, and so I think that for me, the only thing I like to make sure people do when they're doing like a higher fat diet, which ours would be included in that, is I got to make sure they're getting enough fiber, because the thing we know when people go fully ketogenic is they make more circulating endotoxin. That the gut, because you don't have enough fiber, the gut microbiome breaks down. And then when the microbiome, when you get these bugs that are dying off, your bacteria, they release a part of their cell wall called lipopolysaccharide. And so lipopolysaccharide is like the big compound. Your liver and lymph are supposed to clear it out, but if you're chronically metabolically inflamed, it can't. And that lipopolysaccharide attaches to your kidneys and your liver and your heart and your pancreas and all your tissues and triggers the genetic expression of inflammatory chemistry. So I'm like you. I like a little higher fat protein and moderate carbohydrate intake depending on what a person can tolerate. Because I also know that there's people that will vary their ability to tolerate a carb. But I'm pretty much, I'm big on teaching what I would call sober carb intake. Because people get drunk with carbs, right? It's like you gotta be realistic about it. If you're sitting around all day long, you don't need to eat a bunch of carbs to run that mouse on your computer, And if you're sitting there watching TV and doing Netflix, you're not getting out doing your hour walk a day. And even then, I would challenge people that they need a lot of carbs because, the average farmer in the 1800s is only eating a meal and a half a day, right? And so I'm big on teaching people, one, the first, eating whole foods and eating foods that will nourish them. Secondly, if they do have problems like autoimmune disorders or stubborn weight gain or irritable bowel, for example, that I encourage them to do food allergy panels that are inclusive of the immune markers for food allergies. And then just like what you said, I tend to make, if people are going to have their carb, I have them do it in the evening because it helps their serotonin production. Kind of like to keep their fats and proteins higher in the morning and afternoon. But then, we're pretty custom on it, but I'm pretty much in agreement with what you said. I just like to make sure I emphasize to people, please make sure you get fiber to protect the microbiome because, Ed, and your gut's generating a ton of this inflammatory, chemistry. It's 70% of your immune system, gets, rolls out from your intestine. And so it's just important to understand that, it's not enough to just take supplements or to just exercise. You gotta eat right. You've got to eat healthy. You've got to pick, lots of, good quality vegetables. I'm moderate on fruit. I tell people eat 3 or 4 vegetables for every fruit. And that fruit better be low glycemic. So eat some berries, maybe a pear. But that's kind of how I do it.
You are echoing me so closely. It's almost scary. And I love the fact that you're emphasizing this fiber. In fact, for my 63rd birthday, we did a huge promotion that was probably the most successful in my 43-year career. So we videoed myself doing 63 really good push-ups on my 63rd birthday. Brian did that at the gym for me. And we came up with the thing that I've been doing for almost 3 years or more, or 4 actually, called Ed's Breakfast Drink, because I really feel that if we start the day with the perfect amount of macros, which are protein, fats, carbs, and fiber, that you actually can set a chemistry up for far more perfection than you can if you screw up breakfast and try to fix it later. So I use a keto powder. I use some MCT oil that's in it, and I use some greens powder, but I use hemp fiber. I just really like the hemp fiber for multiple reasons, and no, it doesn't have THC in it, so no one has to worry. But those 4 things put together, again, I challenge people constantly. The amount of people who bought that special over that next 2 weeks, this was August of last year, I'm still getting probably a person every other day that comes in and says, I cannot believe how much more energy I have, less cravings, and less brain fog from just doing the drink. And many did not change anything else. But I think you would be in agreement that the breakfast has to be, when you screw it up in the morning, you've kind of done you've done yourself in for the day. So
you're ruined. I mean, the thing is, because your cortisol goes up in the morning, you're already less, you're less insulin potentiated. Your body can't use the insulin really as efficiently when your cortisol is peaking in the morning. So you put a bunch of carbs in and you're tanking 2 hours later, you've just set up dysglycemia and inflammation for the rest of the day. Absolutely.
Well,
that's without a doubt. So, and I think, the other piece is I do think there are important nutrients. So you get past the baseline of people should get their vitamin D levels checked, their zinc levels checked, their mag checked. Make sure your essential nutrients are covered. I find most people are deficient in magnesium. Super simple, and yet, we've got the NIH saying that magnesium deficiency is probably the number 1 nutrient deficiency associated with the development of metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
This is across studying thousands of people in the U.S. But yeah, I don't like vegetables. Well, what are you going to do? Breathe it in? Nobody's putting magnesium in our catalytic converters and shoving it in the air. You gotta take the stuff. So, I think that's important. And when I go past that, probably for me, the single most important nutrient for controlling metabolic inflammation, and there's studies to verify this. Actually, a bunch of things have come out in the last year. And I make no bones about it. I'm on I speak for Wakanaga for aged garlic extract, Kyolic. Kyolic aged garlic extract is probably, I think, the single, most pleiotropic or multi-pronged approach, because it's been shown to lower interleukin-6, which is an inflammatory cytokine that people who are overweight and people who are diabetic tend to make a lot of. People with heart disease, IL-6 goes up. TNF-alpha, tumor necrosis factor alpha, another inflammatory compound that goes up. So it's been shown in people that were, med-S, overweight, that it lowered that amount of those inflammatory compounds by a third. I mean, that's unbelievable. So I really like it for that. And then there were new studies that showed that, in diabetics, it helped to remodel their left ventricle so that the enlargement of the heart goes down a little bit. That was Dr. Budoff's study. The obvious study showing that, and here's the things that happen in metaflammation. Remember I said bone loss happens in metaflammation. When you take aged garlic, they showed that it prevented bone loss in people when they were scanning their hearts and looking at their coronary arteries and looking at they got to see their spine, and they saw that a lot of these folks, that their lipids were distorted, that they could look at their spine and see that they were losing bone. And why is that important? When you lose bone, the calcium is what's used to plaque your arteries. So stopping that, reducing vulnerable plaque, literally reversing the vulnerable plaque that tends to burst open and cause sudden death and cause, traumatic events in individuals. Heart disease, our number one killer. It reduced vulnerable plaque when you took it. I mean, that's incredible. And the other one is that it helps to lower those bad actor lipids. So oxidized cholesterol, oxidized LDL, apolipoprotein B. It helps with blood vessels to be more pliable so that your blood pressure comes down. Because we always heard this, back in the day, you and I are same age, man. When I was 60, I did the same thing. I just turned 60 this year, and I did a 40 years at LaValle and showed pictures of me when I was, training when I was 20, and then pictures today. And people were like, holy cow, maybe I should think about doing what you're doing, right? And it's like you, Ed. It's like, it's not about the one magic pill we take. It's about the lifestyle that we adopt so that we can grab our vitality. And so with aged garlic, what was really, I think, important is it has an effect on blood vessels. It has an effect on bone. It has an effect on helping insulin receptors to wake up. It helps to remodel the oxidative burden that goes on, because when people think of aging or metabolic inflammation, you only want to think about you're rusting quicker. It's your rate of resting, right? I mean, so I don't want to rust. And that means I need to reduce that oxidative process going on in my body. And so I think that's a big strategy right off the get-go. But then people kind of need to think about things, as I said, whole body metabolism. What is your stress like? A lot of people don't want to fess up that, oh man, I'm feeling overcommitted and stressed out. And yeah, I go after those tortilla chips at 5 o'clock. I drink that drink in the morning, man. I eat a salad at lunch, but I get home from work and the kids are yelling and I got a report due, and all of a sudden that potato chip bag looks like love. And so it's like, what can we do to help with that? So you think about microbiome health, blood vessel health, and anti-inflammatory approaches. And then I think there's some important nutrients on the stress side that can really help people too.
What again, wonderful explanation. And, Kyolic has been a brand that I have endorsed for, I know, probably starting in 1979 when I first began this journey. And when you look into the PubMed and you look into the research, there is not another garlic company that even holds a candle to the amount of research that backs this product up. And, it does tend to always still frustrate me, even at this age, after this many decades of dealing with medical professionals who simply can't put these kind of things into their toolbox that they would recommend to every single patient. But we know the system is kind of broke and it's not encouraging that. But so I've been taking Cowlick very religiously for a long time. But I can tell you, and then I want to get a little bit to finish up here on the other supplements, but I know that just looking at people's blood work when they get on, and I love the blood pressure formula by Cowlick. Mine's not really high, but, we always want to keep it as low as possible. And I do 2 twice a day. And I love the nattokinase that's in there, too. But anything with Cowlick is going to be a winner. But I notice people's, numbers do improve, even if that's the only single thing they do is take Cowlick garlic. And that's impressive, because the proof is in the pudding. And when I see this, it sticks with me. So, and it also is no odor. I mean, I honestly, the 2 foods I despise in my whole life is the taste of garlic and cilantro. I absolutely, it's not even a dislike. It is a hatred beyond hatred. And so I never have a problem. It never bothers me. I never burp it. I really do well with that. And I know I had a really great a couple interviews with a couple different physicians on the options for the pandemic, and we talked about garlic, and they said Cowlick at the same time. So even for regular colds and sicknesses, I love the fact, and we all know garlic kills bacteria. I talk a lot about what I call the core 4. After this many years, I noticed so many people being so cross-eyed when they would come into the store and look at 8,000 products and not know where to begin. Well, I realized after looking at so many people and counseling so many and listening to experts like yourself that there is a basic platform that we really have to embrace. And that does, I labeled it Core 4, but it's actually 5 products. It's a great multivitamin, not a Centrum, people. 2 is a green drink made with organic greens, very low carbohydrate, helps the liver, helps the kidneys, helps protect the body, helps you be more alkaline. Probiotics, magnesium, and omega-3. Now, the vitamin D's in the multiple at the one that we recommend, pretty high dose. So those 5 things is the platform that no matter what else you do, that would be the key core program. I would like to have added Cowlick into that one, but it is in the secondary tier of, okay, we're used to this core 4. Now let's expand this into a even more advanced program for the rest of our life. Well, Cowlick is in there for twice-a-day dosing. So tell me a little bit, if we want to kind of wind things up, is that would that be a good idea, my core 4? Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, obviously, I think, a lot of people don't like fish. You got to have omega-3s. It's essential to regulating your, what's called the thromboxane pathway, where you make a lot of inflammatory prostaglandins if you don't have omega-3. So I think your core 4 makes, perfect sense. And, I think for people, they've kind of got to look at, once again, it goes back to, well, what's your blood telling you? Are you, where are your lipids are great, but your glucose and insulin is, your glucose is 98 and, you've got weight around your belly. Well, maybe on that second tier, you got to add chromium and alpha lipoic acid, because that helps your insulin receptors to work better. And for you, that becomes important, right? And once again, if somebody's stressed out, that I teach stress chemistry a lot, because a lot of people look at it as something psychological instead of physiologic. When your stress hormones go up, when your cortisol goes up and your adrenaline goes up and your noradrenaline goes up, so the neurochemicals that drive fight or flight response and the hormone cortisol, your insulin receptors are going to get sluggish, your blood vessels are going to get tight, you're going to deplete magnesium from your tissue, and you're going to trigger more of that inflammatory chemistry. You make more histamine and you get more allergic, and your immune system gets sideways. And as you said, even ate garlic extract for the immune system. They did a study on. I mean, people, got back back after a cold and flu. They got back 50% of the time. The recovery time was at 50% of what it normally would have been, and their duration, the severity. All of those things in terms of that, it works. It's a great universal thing. And the other thing that's interesting is it's good with feeding the microbiome. So that's why I think it's a top tier, tier 2 product for, on the way you approach it. And then the other thing is like, what am I going to do about my stress? Is, do I perseverate? Am I thinking too much at night, making lists? Well, that's somebody that needs theanine. And am I somebody that I crave? Like, man, I get under stress and I want food. I mean, that potato chip, I can rub that bag on my head, and so that's really helping me to eat those cookies. But they're gluten-free and organic cookies. Well, you still can't eat the box, So I think Relora as an ingredient works really well for people for stress-induced craving patterns. So those are a couple that I think are big winners that people need to consider. And then it kind of gets, I think there's a lot of different things that could benefit, individuals. Obviously K2. So if you get K2 in there with that D, it's important. So that's, to me, it becomes interesting on, well, where are you really having trouble? That's why we developed the Metabolic Code platform. Take this questionnaire, get your labs, point where your metabolism is the most broke, do your core things, but then where is your metabolism the most broke so that you can point to it and say, oh, that's where I need to work with my nutrients. Because I find a lot of times people, they don't get, which is what I love about what you're doing, Ed. I mean, people don't get pointed, guided, and targeted advice on what to do so that they can feel better. Because that's, in the end, if I say, oh, wow, I'm taking all these vitamins for my genetic SNPs, well, do you feel any different? No. Well, okay, what did it accomplish? You don't feel any better. You want to get to where you're feeling better.
Absolutely. And it is so important to individualize a education and advice for each person, because we all are a mixture of so many different genetics and life experiences and damages we've already done to ourselves through lifestyle. But it's so similar to, a retirement account. And if you wait till you're 60 to start saving money for retirement, you're pretty much SOL. You're out of luck if you think you're going to retire as a millionaire, unless you make tons of money, which is pretty rare. But if you start at 20 years old, you can do quite well if you're disciplined. Well, the same thing applies so much and even more to this conversation of building our health, lowering the inflammation, being on the right supplements. And I want to tell people, this is not a tremendous hardship. It truly becomes a part of your life to a point where you really don't think about it much. When I think about it is when I kind of slip off and make a few mistakes, and then a little bit of cravings come back, and then, and then, so only when I'm bad do I think about it. When I'm good, hey, I'm rocking along most of the time, 100 miles an hour, doing great in the gym, feeling good at work 6 days a week, I'm like you. It sounds like you're as busy as I am. And it takes, you could do this with self-discipline, but it really takes being healthy to do this. And we all could drop dead tomorrow. We're all a blood clot away from it, but you put the odds in your court so much more when you do the right supplement program, the right diet program, the right sleep. And on the Holistic Navigator, I'm trying to put together a type of, legacy I have 27 employees at the store. We have 17 practitioners. I'm not by any means the guru, but I have had 4 decades of experience. So I wanted to put those in a format, and I have a great one on sleep. And I mean, anyone who has insomnia, because I am a chronic insomniac, please listen to the Holistic Navigator on sleep. My biggest point on that whole podcast, it's not the absolute only, is taping your mouth shut with the special tape we sell. And that has changed the life of so many people by not mouth breathing at night. So I'm throwing that out too as an enticing thing for the people to listen to my sleep one. And then Brenda Watson, who has been on PBS, she spoke eloquently about the gut, the microbiome. Again, and I usually say this at the end of the show, Dr. LaValle, and we'll say it right now. I separate the world into 2 classes of people, and that is learners and non-learners. If you want to age gracefully, you want to keep your health, it is about learning. And don't expect your regular healthcare worker and or Google to help you do that. Assemble a team. In fact, everyone listening, mentioned to Dr. LaValle before we started this, we're hoping to partner with him so that he can actually maybe be doing some consultations through Zoom that could help all of you if you want from this location. So look for that on the Holistic Navigator. And then again, nutritionw.com is the sponsor. You want to order things like anything from the Kyolic to the Core 4, nutritionw.com. And I had to say, which I've gotten into this kind of pattern of having to voice my strong opinion. This morning on the radio show in Tampa when they called me, and she was asking, what about supplements? Where should you buy them? I said, first off, I really recommend honest local nutrition stores who have spent their life learning this. I think that's number one to go to. Two is not Amazon. Why? Because they use resellers. You never know for sure what you're getting. The Wall Street Journal, if you Google Wall Street Journal, dumpster diving Amazon, you'll see how many supplements are being pulled out of dumpsters that are out of date. And these counterfeit people can change the dates. And also reselling means that they're stored who knows where, and they ship them with no cold packs in the middle of summer. So what do you think happens to these freaking probiotics and omega-3s during a 110-degree day in UPS truck? They're ruined. We ship at nutritionw.com with cold packs. So I had to get that in, Dr. LaValle.
That's awesome. Look, in the end, what it really all starts with is product quality. One of the things that we're doing with product and working on a project is something called True Trace, where you'll have a symbol on it where you can scan the bottle and you'll get the complete point of origin and the quality of the product. It's pretty neat technology that we're looking at, because in the end, all we're wanting people to do is get a quality product that's going to have a good chance at working for them, right? That's why we look at the evidence and really try to promote things that can help people to feel well. It's not about who's going to treat your illness. It's about how well can you stay.
Wow. Bingo. And transparency is the guiding force in my journey of health and nutrition, whether it be education and or products. And, again, we come back to you and I are on the same exact pattern and thinking. And I just can't thank you enough, Dr. LaValle, and I wish you all the best. And I know we're going to hook up and speak again and hopefully also partner on some consultation options for listeners and clients. So all the best to you, my friend. And I do want to end this Holistic Navigator a little differently. I'm going to probably put this in the book because Dr. LaValle gave me this idea. Everyone, you deserve to feel your best and to be able to live the quality of life that you were given. And we are not being programmed for that. So step outside of that box where everybody's kind of contained in and know that there are options, but it does require you to be wanting to change, because the momentum out there is really not for this. It is for symptomatic treatment. It is for, having a issue at hand and you go get some mainly Band-Aid approach and it's kind of like putting a piece of duct tape on the red light of your dashboard and kind of ignoring it as long as the engine's still running. And people like Dr. LaValle, myself, the Holistic Navigator, nutritionw.com, that's not why we get up in the morning. We do it for the other reason, which is I'm going to be here as long as I can to help everyone to know they deserve to feel the best in life and help them to do this. So thank you, everyone, and please tune in for our next exciting episode of The Holistic Navigator.
The information on this podcast and the topics discussed have not been evaluated by the FDA or anyone of the medical profession, and is not aimed to replace any advice you may receive from your medical practitioner. The Holistic Navigator assumes no responsibility or liability whatsoever on behalf of any purchaser or listener of these materials. The Holistic Navigator is not a doctor, nor does it claim to be. Please consult your physician before beginning any health regimen.